Somebody asked me yesterday, how do I manifest something fast? There's a few things that we have to realize about manifesting, and we have to make sure that we understand them properly. Many people will manifest things in the wrong direction because of their lack of understanding around this principle. The first thing is this: just go sit somewhere for a little while, maybe an hour, and realize you have this amazing life that's happening all around you with very little effort on your part, and that it shows up in a very unique way for you as a person, and it has been all of your life. And the point is, with very little effort, right? It keeps kind of happening the same way, right? There's differences here and there, but it keeps kind of happening the same way. The reason for that is because you have a subconscious mental image of what your life is supposed to be that's operating 24 hours a day. One of the things that it's doing every day when you're awake is it's telling you what to pay attention to that is part of your life, and then you unconsciously react in order to keep those things in place, right? I love to use the idea of, think about how you drive a car. Think about how many movements are in place, how much of your sense is involved, even though you're probably paying attention to something else when you're driving or talking or listening to something or thinking about where you're going or where you came from. Your mind is scanning this road that you're on, and the people on the road, and the cars that are on the road, and the speeds that you're traveling, and the weather, and reacting to it all unconsciously, right? You don't have to mathematically think to yourself, how much pressure must be applied to this brake pedal to stop within a certain amount of feet so I don't slam into the guy in front of me, right? You've internalized that as a manifestation. You just do it. So our whole life is this way, right? You've done thousands of movements in your life over and over again in very specific ways. You have millions of reactions in your mind about how things are in your life that you don't have to even think about, that you're automatically doing every day, so that you keep manifesting your life relatively the same as it is. That's why when something happens out of the blue, especially if it's not good, it's so disturbing, because it takes us out of that unconscious process of how we're actually manifesting on a regular basis, which is without effort, okay? Without effort, or the way of least effort. So now you have something that you want to create fast in your life. You want to manifest fast. First question: do you want to manifest it because you want something, or do you want to manifest it because you don't want something? What is the energy behind the manifestation? We have to get to know this energy, right? Because this is an energy that a lot of people sleepwalk in. A lot of things people do in their life is because they're avoiding other things. Shame and guilt is an extraordinarily powerful energy that people use to keep certain things from being exposed or found out or having to be dealt with in a person's life, and we keep it all compartmentalized in this little container in our mind. But it takes a tremendous amount of energy to do that. And at the same time, we keep manifesting things that cause us to have shame and to have guilt. It becomes part of the process, but we don't know it. It's not linked together in our consciousness and our unconsciousness. The first time that I ever sat down and did this exercise was shortly after I had started my business. I oversold one of my very first events. I didn't have enough product to fulfill the event. Back in those days, we had workbooks and cassette tapes and a clamshell, and everybody got one. And, without that, they didn't have the materials to go through the 3 days. And I ran out of money. And I needed $20,000. And I needed to have these things in a week to be able to put the event on, or I had to refund people the money. And I didn't want to refund anybody because I needed the money to continue to move forward. But the first problem was I didn't have the 20,000. At first, I'm thinking to myself, I don't even know anybody that's got 20,000. But I had a friend, and he came over one morning around 9 o'clock. We sat there and had a cup of coffee and talked about the situation. We said, let's do this exercise. Let's write down every place that our mind can think of that we're going to get this 20,000. Every person, every idea, it doesn't matter how crazy it is, we're going to put it down on a whiteboard. And we sat there for, I don't know, hour and a half, 90 minutes, something like that. And just wrote down all these names. Everything, like there was no evaluating whether it was a good idea or a bad idea. Just write it down. Okay. We looked at it and we said, okay, what is jumping off of that board at us, like intuitively, you know? And there were a couple things, and he said to me, he mentioned this guy's name, and he said, I really think that's where the 20,000 is. I said, but I don't even really know this guy. I've only met him casually a few times. He said, yeah, but he really believes in what you're doing. He said, I think that he would loan you the 20,000. So he called him. Then handed the phone to me. I got on the phone with him. I told him what we were doing and what we needed. And he said, can I come over tonight with my wife? And I said, yeah, absolutely. So he came over, and by 11 o'clock, we had a check for $20,000 by 11 o'clock that evening. But everything in me at that time was I had such tremendous energy about the movement forward of what it was that I was doing. But I learned a lesson out of that. And the lesson was that everything that you want has a cost. From you as a person, it has a price. So does failure, by the way. But we'll talk about that later. Success asks something of you. It asks for you to move to a different level. It doesn't matter what you want. You're not going to sit on the couch and manifest anything positive that you want. It requires that whatever you want, you're going to get up and you're going to do something. You're going to take some action, whatever it is. If it's something that you want that is an advancement of yourself, like more success in some way, but it can be particular, it can be materialistic, it doesn't matter. You have to ask yourself, what is the thing that I need to do that I haven't done before? What is this asking of me? Now, for me, in that exercise, it was number one, doing the exercise. Number two, asking the people in that exercise, because I had never done that before. It taught me that lesson that, in that situation, everything that I wanted was in the hands of somebody else. Was I willing to ask for it? A lot of people think that that's too simple, but it isn't, because one of the greatest problems that people have is that they don't ask. They don't ask other people. They don't ask the right people. That lesson was taught to me by Proctor, and he put it on a big whiteboard, and he would say, write down the thing that you want at the top and then intersect it vertically with a line straight down the center of the paper. So you had a left and a right. He said, on the right side, you write down everything that you can think of, everything that comes to your mind that you could think of that would be a possibility to get this thing. And then on the left side is going to be all the reasons why you can't do it. In other words, a person might say, we can go to the bank and we could loan you $20,000 from the bank. And at the same time, your mind goes, there's no way the bank's going to give me $20,000. Well, the second part is a reason why you can't do it. Now, this is where most people miss it. It's not that they won't think of the way. It's that as they think of the way, their mind talks them right out of the way. So he would say, write the word next on the left side of the sheet. N-E-X-T, write the word next. And every time your mind goes to a reason why you can't do it, say next. In other words, go to the next thought, but continue to write down the things that come to your mind. He said, and it will always give you the door to the path of what it is. And I've been doing that now for a quarter of a century, and it's never not worked. It's never not worked for anybody that I've taught it to. As long as you're willing to go through each one of those things that you write down and see it to its fullest conclusion. Because, like I said, what it does is it will open the door. It doesn't always give it to you instantaneously, like you're going to open the door and the bundle of money that you desire is going to be right there, like it was for me. There's been many things where all it did was open the door, but it led me down a hall to another door and another door and another door, and eventually it got manifested. So when you do that exercise, you must remember the unseen work you are doing, and that it's a real thing. And that is your intention. When you create the intention for what you want, that is a real thing. It is just as real as if you're going to get in your car and go to the store and buy something, because you're giving a command into the universe of what it is that you want. And if you hold that intention without letting it go, without clouding your mind about why it can't happen, why it won't happen, am I ready, is it this, without all the negative, it will begin to bring all of the things necessary toward you for their manifestation. Now, it is true you don't know how long that is, but I can tell you that the length that is determined has very much to do with your ability to focus on that end result. The more laser focused you are, without negative intention, going back and forth, without being wishy-washy on your decision, the faster that it's going to come in. And then the more you do this exercise, the more that when you do it the next time, you're going to step into a place of the known, right? You're going to know this works because you've done it many times. That a lot of the doubt is going to be removed at those moments, because you'll be like, I don't know where it's coming from, but I know it's coming. Now, my job's to then pay attention to the doors that open, the phone calls you get, the emails that you get, the people reaching out that you get, the seemingly coincidental trips or whatever that show up in your life. I remember one time I was in a situation like this, and I was on the road with Bob. And the rule was, if I was going to coach with him, I had to go to every event that he did in North America. I had to fly first class. I had to ride in the back of the car when I was there. I had to do all these things. I had to work at the event. There was one point where I had a conflict with something, and I wasn't going to go to an event we just did like one weekend, the next weekend. And he said something to me. He goes, like, he called me and he goes, something about when we get there, we're going to do this or whatever, something. He said, and I said, you know what? I'm not going to make the next one. And he goes, what? Now, here's what happened. I was doing everything this guy said. Was anything changing rapidly for me in this time? No. I was just following the direction of my mentor. And there were no big changes happening. My income wasn't increasing. In fact, it was actually costing me money to do all of these things. I didn't see any massive change, but I was on a path, right? And in the middle of that path, my mind started to get lazy about it. And I said, I'm not going to come to the next one. And he's like, what? He said, David, let me remind you of our agreement. First of all, he said, but why would you not come? And in this, God's truth, I said, Bob, look, I just did this one with you last weekend. It's going to be the same thing this weekend. There's plenty of people going to be there. You're not going to be, hurting if I don't show up or whatever. And he says, oh, I see. You've decided already that you're not going to get anything from this. And I got really quiet and I had to think about it for a second. And it was true. Number one, like the arrogance of me to just be thinking about that I'm in a process of learning and giving and change, but that I was actually thinking about the idea that I wasn't going to get anything out of it and it was costing me something, is what infiltrated my mind. He says, you have no way of knowing what's going to come out of this event because you've already decided you're not going to be there. And you're only thinking about what it's going to cost you. I recommitted and I went. And great things did come out of it. And I was shocked. I laughed. I had to laugh at myself because I was allowing the part of the process of the commitment to get in the way of what was traveling to me. It's costing me this much money in a credit card again, and the bills are going up, and people at home aren't necessarily happy that I'm leaving again, like all that kind of stuff. That's what we have to watch out for when we manifest, because we don't know how long it's going to take, and we don't know the road that's going to have to be traveled. You're going to have to be very astute about what you say yes and what you say no to, because you cannot predetermine what door the universe is going to walk in the thing that you desire. It very often comes from a place that we're not aware of at the time. A chance meeting, an opportunity, right? A random ask by somebody else, and then fortuitously you meet somebody and it's like, whoa, where did this come from? That's how it works. The first part of it, though, is that you already have the key to open the door. You must open it, and then you must start walking down that hallway, and you must stay in the hallway until you come across the next door. That's how life is. But most people do it the opposite way. They're choosing safety and security, and I don't want to make a mistake, and shame and guilt and caring too much about what other people think. And that costs them something too. It costs them the future of what they want, because they don't want to upset other people. Somebody's constantly saying, do this, do that, do this, do that, or don't do this, don't do that. And they're just kind of following along in that. They're foregoing the part of themselves that actually wants something. So it is costing them just as much as it would cost you if you're going after what you do want. There's a price to pay on either side. On the downside, it is success itself. On the upside, it is whatever negative pattern needs to be let go of next in order to step into the new you. You can't bargain with it. And you must be aware if you're falling into that space. You start paying way too much attention to what you think it's costing you versus what you're getting, and you're not realizing you're on a path. It will come in time, when the time is right. The huge part of that is that you're staying on the path, right? If you start bargaining with it, it's over, it stops. And the universe makes no big grand splash to let you know that it stopped either. It just stops. And then you find yourself in confusion and things aren't going right and you're spiraling out and you don't even realize it. Why? Because you started to try to bargain with success. So ask yourself where you are. Where am I now? What do I want? And then what is the door? What is the commitment I need to make to move into the next thing? Whether it's a long-term vision, like for the next year, or is this something short-term, something that you want and desire right now that you want to manifest in your life? You must become the person. That means, what am I going to let go of that's not part of what I want? And what am I going to adopt in myself as part of what I want? And then stay walking through that hall. All right, that's it.